Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. Welcome to the Clutter Fairy Weekly for June 16th, 2020. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. How you doing? This is our weekly podcast and webcast that we do to talk about all things organized and all kinds of tips and tricks about how to be organized and declutter your space. We appreciate that you come and join us, and we get all of our topics for the webcast with comments that you make on our various channels. So we really appreciate that you do that.
If you're joining us in the Zoom meeting for the first time, you can share your comments and questions via the chat, and I'll try to make sure Gayle gets to them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature to let me know that you'd like to ask a question or make a comment yourself via audio or video. And we love when people do that. We're streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can also share your questions and suggestions there, and I'll relay them to Gayle. And during the live webcast each Tuesday, you can talk to us directly by calling 669-900-6833. Use meeting ID 993-419-863 to join the meeting. Before we get to our main topic, I wanted to talk about something interesting. We've talked about this before, clutter and evolution. In previous meetings, we've talked about theories about why humans are prone to collecting clutter. And I wanted to get your take on an article that I came across recently. This was in the Vancouver Sun, and I'll read just a couple of paragraphs that I found intriguing.
Okay.
Dr. Jody Samra, a clinical psychologist who works with compulsive hoarders, says, clutter itself, the tendency to collect and keep, is a normal human attribute with an evolutionary reason. That evolutionary reason may go back to our hunter-gatherer days, says Samra, when resources were scarce. Collecting, storing, even hoarding might have helped us survive between harvests and hunts. She goes on to say that in our modern affluent consumer society, most of us have gone beyond meeting our basic needs to exceeding them. And when an evolutionary adaptation no longer serves a critical need, it actually becomes a stressor instead of an advantage. What do you think about that?
I find it very interesting that a characteristic that was an advantage for our ancient ancestors becomes a source of stress to us when it's no longer serving our needs. The tendency that our ancestors evolved to keep a backup tool or a surplus supply of grain now translates into our emotional drive to fill a 3,000 square foot house with furniture and knickknacks, or the sense of safety that we get from an 18-pack of toilet paper. In the pandemic, when everybody sort of panicked about, oh my God, what if I run out of toilet paper? It was a very irrational response to a crazy situation, but how interesting that our response was to go gather toilet paper and stick it in the corner to make sure that we had enough. I totally get that we have that sort of evolutionary technique baked in to our psyche, and how funny that now we're in this place where it's sort of gone awry for us, like it served a purpose when you had a little pile of stuff that was extra and not a whole house full of stuff that was extra.
But it's the same psychochemical reaction. It's the same,
yeah.
the same endorphin hit from that feeling of, well, now I have paper towels for the next 6 months.
Right. Now I feel safe because I have extra toilet paper in the closet, right? Yeah, it's a very interesting, we still have the emotional response even though the situation isn't exactly the same, right? Like what really would have happened if you'd run out of toilet paper? Like you would have gone to get some more toilet paper, or you would have gone knocking on your neighbor's door and said, hi, I need a roll of toilet paper. Like, were we really in mortal danger from lack of toilet paper? No. But our response was that was how we coped with, oh my God, there's a lot going on and we might be in danger. We might be under duress. And so we need to go and squirrel things in the corner like a little squirrel and go put some nuts away. It's a very interesting discussion about, how we have this standard response to things, and how in this situation, in this modern society, we're in no way under that level of threat. and yet we respond by gathering and filling spaces with stuff, squirreling it away. Very fascinating. And and now we have to sort of actively work against that conditioned
impulse.
response,
Yeah.
right? That
Yep.
impulse, right? We have to work against that impulse and go, am I really being chased down by a dinosaur? No. Am I really being chased by a tiger? No. It's
To clarify, we did not overlap with dinosaurs.
right. Is it
But
well,
the
woolly
saber-toothed
mammoths,
cats
right?
were really around.
Right, they
Yeah.
were around when we were.
Yeah.
The idea being that I find it fascinating that we have an evolutionary reason why we, you know, squirrel things away in the corner, and our need for that is so not the same anymore. And the modern version of that was in the Depression, when everybody had nothing because the whole economy ground to a halt, and everybody was starving to death basically. And I'm sure that like re-goosed our impulse to hoard things from having that experience. And we're just currently not in that kind of a threat level, right?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Okay.
It's a very interesting point of view.
All right. Well, let's get on to our featured topic.
Okay.
Motivation and momentum, how to keep your organizing project moving. So you pushed yourself hard to get started. You spent a whole afternoon or maybe a weekend day digging out a space that was in bad shape. You look up and it seems like nothing is different. It's easy to get discouraged on a big long-term project, especially when you're in the early going. Gayle, what advice can you offer on how to stay motivated and keep going when the progress is slow in coming?
How do you keep going when you can't see tons of progress right away? There's nothing worse than working for hours and then looking up and feeling like it looks worse than when you started. And I've heard that more than one time. The problem with organizing is it's not like cleaning the bathroom. You can't kick yourself into gear and spend 30 minutes and call it done. There is no correlation between how long our window is for staying focused on the task versus how long it's going to take to get it truly done. So let's look at some ways to keep it going, even though it's not done in one afternoon. So the first tip I'm going to offer you is let's update our expectations. The mess took months and months, years, maybe sometimes, to build it into its current state, and one afternoon of focused cleaning will barely make a dent. You need to see organizing the house differently than cleaning the house. It's a time-consuming process that requires making lots of decisions. And those piles are an accumulation of postponed decisions. When you start working on the clutter, all of those decisions are still there to be made, waiting to be handled. So unlike cleaning, what took a long time to build will take an equally long time to remove. And it's still going to be shorter than it took to make the mess, but it's definitely going to be longer than it takes to clean the room, right? The second thing is to define success in a new way for yourself. So decluttering is a long-term project, so be proud of your interim achievements. If you plan to work for 3 hours and you actually work for 3 hours, be excited about it. When you're done for the day and you take the trash out, count the trash bags and be proud of that count. I do that at clients a lot, where I say, oh my gosh, we took 4 bags out to the trash can. We filled up your trash can outside. Isn't that amazing? All of that stuff used to be in the house. It's important to recognize that you are achieving something, even though your ultimate goal of I'm decluttering the room is not complete. You have spent 3 hours and 4 trash bags worth of time on it, and that is a win. Look at the car full of donations and think about all that trash and donations that used to be in the house. Every item removed from the house is one less decision to make, one less item to dust, one less box to move. Celebrate what you've done after each session. You have earned a happy dance. And it's part of my job at a client's to do the happy dance, like, okay, we did a great job. Look at all the work you've done. And I do that on purpose to mirror and mimic. This is how I want you to coach yourself when I'm not here. And I think it's super important to give yourself some support and boost, not waiting for I've started it and I'm waiting to be excited about it 6 months down the road when it's done. You need to be excited every day that you work on it. Another idea is to work with a friend. So sometimes a team makes it easier to stay focused. Just pick that person really carefully. In other words, unless you have a great working relationship with your spouse, don't pick your spouse to work with. Pick somebody who will gently encourage you, who will be kind. We want somebody who's going to help you to keep going in a way that is supportive and doesn't feel attacking, for instance. Maybe somebody who will make the goodwill run for you. Use that shared task to keep motivated. When one of you is lagging behind, the other one can pick up some slack. A lot of my clients find that just my presence there while we work is enough to help them stay focused. It gives the sense that you're not facing this daunting task alone, and that helps. Ask for help with the things that stall you. So one person has said that they get stalled by taking things to the car or to the garage. So you do the work, you make the piles. Now I need to take the trash out, or I need to take the stuff and put it in the car to go to donation. And they get hung up in the process of actually taking it out. So I say that's the time to call the spouse or the kids to help you redistribute the stuff. If you get stalled at this point, ask for help here. Anyone living in a cluttered house will be happy to remove things, I promise. And I was just at somebody's house yesterday who she does not work well on projects when I'm not there. And we get to a certain point, and then there's all this stuff that needs to go to my car to be hauled away. And she asks her husband to come in and help us load the car. And she does that because they're heavy boxes, or like it's a box of books and it's too heavy or whatever. And I appreciate it so much because then I'm not having to carry it all out to the car. But this is an area where it breaks down for her, the getting it out of the house and into the car. And getting her husband to come and help means that he's participating a little bit, and he's also seeing everything that goes out of the house. Like, it works for her, and that he gets to see the results of our effort because he's carrying it all out to the car. And that's really important for her. If you live alone and you need some support and you need help with the stuff that's stalling you, then I would find one of those drive-by pickups like the Disabled Veterans or the Purple Heart, where they call and make an appointment and they're going to drive by and pick things up off the porch. If you find getting the task of driving it to the next place a problem, then maybe you can get these people to come by and pick it up off the porch. The point of this technique is to recognize the places in the process where your ability to handle it breaks down and find some help to get around that breakdown. You know where you get stalled, and asking for support in just that space will help you keep forward momentum.
Karen mentioned that she sends accountability photos to supportive friends to help stay on task.
Well,
So
and she sent accountability for to me today.
Yeah, and even if you're not, even if you aren't enlisting friends to actually come physically help you, just having people who are supportive and getting their buy-in with your photos
right?
is great.
Sending the photos and have people write back and say, great job, that's so exciting. Even that little bit is helpful. And I needed that for, I hate working on taxes. I was an accountant in my former life. Anything related to bookkeeping and accounting and taxes just makes me, roll up my eyes and snort. And I can't even be bothered. And so getting ready for tax time and filing things with my tax accountant is a task that I have a problem with. And so I got my organizer friends. I'm in a mastermind group with 6 other organizers, and I confessed to my organizer friends that I was struggling getting this done, and made myself accountable to them about it. And they were like, okay, so you're going to promise to get it done by Friday. And then they didn't hear from me. And so yesterday I got a text from one of them. Did you work on your tax stuff did you get it done on Friday like you promised? And yes, I did. I forgot to send a text. I'm so sorry. But knowing that my friends, my organizer friends who are super task oriented anyway, were out there waiting to hear whether I'd accomplished it or not was enough to get me motivated and get it done. And so you can send out photos to people like Karen did and say, hey, look, I'm moving it along. Or you can say, hey, I'm going to work and you should look for a photo for me in 5 hours. And if I haven't sent it to you, you should send me a text and ask me how it's going. You know, maybe something like that where they don't have to come over, but they can still, you know, poke you a little bit and ask you for a result. And it might help keep you motivated.
Well, and Deborah says, when I have my seasonal wardrobe sort, I have a friend come over to keep me on task, and we drink tea and I try everything on, and she says yay or nay. I do the same for her.
That's great. And it's great to have you always put on things and go, yeah, you know, this probably works. And then you're going to have your girlfriend and she's going to say, no, no, it doesn't. And as long as you get an outside, you know, point of view, it helps you feel more comfortable with your decision. And that's great. As long as it's somebody that you trust and feel good about. And if you react really negatively to what they've said, then you know that your decision to keep it is one that you feel really strongly about. And so it's good to have that extra person there to mirror to you and help you decide, yes, I feel really strongly about this, or no, I don't feel really strongly about it, and she agrees and I can let it go. And that's a great support. That's a great support technique. Okay, then make sure that you're physically prepared to declutter. When you start any organizing task, you need to be well rested and well fed and at your high energy level. I've said this a million times. You don't want to do this at the low part of your day. You want to do this when you are fueled up and ready to go and at a good focus time of your day, because there's too many decisions to make and too many emotional items to handle, and you don't do those well when you are depleted in some level of resource. You'll just set yourself up to fail if you're not ready, if you're not at your best physically. And so by the same token, you can't work beyond the amount of time that you can truly handle physical work. A lot of my clients at the end of the 3 hours, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so exhausted, because 3 hours is a long time for them. If 2 hours is all you have, you should definitely stop at the end of 2 hours. Pushing past your own energy level means that you slow down and your brain stalls, and any work that you're getting done will be really slow and painful, and it's not worth it. You want to be able to put your best focus and energy on this task so that it's the least painful process possible. And if you do it when you're depleted, it'll be so much more miserable. Do what you can handle. Do the 2 hours, do the 3 hours, do the 15 minutes if that's what you got, and then do the happy dance when you've done it and call it a day. The next suggestion is to do the easy stuff first. There's always tons to give away, and there's always a big pile of things that you can throw out that are easy decisions to make. When you stand and look at a room that's got 400 items in it, 100 of them, 200 of them are going to be things that are not super emotional for you, and they're not going to be hard decisions. And so it's really just a matter of being focused long enough to make a decision and let it go. So those things that don't distress you emotionally to give them up, like go in the room and look for a bunch of empty boxes, or here's old magazines or old work clothes. Whatever you have that's an easy decision making process to evaluate, those are the ones that you want to focus on and find first. And you can make a big dent that way in a short period of time. When you're starting at the beginning and you are trying to cross the room and not feel like I've been working all this time and got nowhere, start with this easy stuff first, because that will make a big dent and leave you with a smaller hard pile that will be less overwhelming to come back to, and it will be a big visual win if you can get a whole bunch out up front. And so try to think of how motivating it will be when you fill up your car and you can see the floor. Here's a section of floor that's been covered up for years that now you can see. And don't assume that a room that you're dreading, there's some particular room in the house that you're really, really worried about. Don't assume that there's no easy decisions in there, because you can look into those rooms and see that there's some things somewhere in there that are easily handled. And if you handle that, you might just find that your overwhelm for this scary room will be that much less. So go for the low-hanging fruit, I guess is the way that we describe it most often, and pull all that stuff out and process it and see what's left. And you'll find that that helps you feel better when you can see a lot of clear space in a short period of time.
And Karen said, I started with the linen closet since it's the smallest area in the house. And so I think that's, you know, the easy stuff and a small zone.
Right, a small zone and a lot of big items in a small space. So the item count was probably relatively low compared to the kitchen, for instance. And one sheet or one blanket out of a linen closet made a big dent. And so I'm sure it was visually rewarding to work in there as well. So the next suggestion is to get big items out first. Maybe you've got a big ugly piece that's in the hallway that's bugging you, that couch that you hate, or an old desk chair because you bought a new one. The lamps that you had in college that you really don't want to use anywhere in the house and you just keep moving them around in storage because they annoy you. Get those items out and you'll have a really big hole in the mess. Blank spaces in the mess are a great motivation to keep going. And I went to somebody's house yesterday who they were taking an old couch and it's heavy trash day, and so they took an old couch that her three boys had destroyed because boys, right? And it had been, they're all out of college and on to their lives, and it was a couch that just really needed to be removed, and they finally carried it out to the curb for heavy trash day, and it left this huge blank space in the room where it was sitting, and it was a big eyesore that wasn't there to annoy them. And I walked in the room and immediately was like, oh my gosh, you got the couch out, isn't that great? It was very obvious that a change had taken place. And so if you focus on the things that are big and irritating and get those out, it will be a great motivation to keep going. If you find yourself stalled on a project that you're working on, go look for a big piece of something that needs to come out and take that one big thing out and make the arrangements for it to disappear. And you will feel motivated by the blank space that it leaves behind. And the last tip that I have for you here is to make a regular appointment on your calendar every week. So Mondays at 2 p.m. or Wednesday mornings at 9. It's like going to church or to the grocery store every Saturday morning. Make a slot for this chore regularly in your schedule. This is like Ed and I, we do this thing we do it at Tuesday at noon, and so we both know that we can't schedule anything Tuesday at noon because this is where we're going to be. And so we're used to it. It's instinctive now, and we build the rest of our lives around that slot being tied up. And so you can do the same with your clutter appointments and decide, I'm going to work on them at a specific time of day or week, a day of the week, and set it as a appointment that's sort of set in stone, so that you know that you're going to do it at the same time every week, and it's going to be routine, and it's going to come around every week that this is where you're going to be doing it. So when you talk to your friends, you don't schedule something else on top of it. And eventually you'll keep chipping away at the project until it's eventually done. And someday this once a week chore, instead of being a decluttering, like complete decluttering project, will become a 1 week maintenance process that you do in order to keep the room up to date. So you will morph someday from one to the other, but if you just set this recurring, I'm going to work on this at this time forever, and there will be occasionally, I'm on vacation, I'm out of town, there will be occasional things where you won't do it, but if you do it, 90% of the time, then eventually you will get to the end of the project, and then you will be using that time slot for maintenance instead. And won't that be exciting? So these are my tips for keeping momentum this week, and now I'd love to hear about your experiences with keeping momentum up. Who has some questions about this process? Anybody?
Well, I have actually a couple of people have
Some
asked
comments?
other questions, not
Okay.
not necessarily on this topic, but digging into more specifics. So
Okay.
I'm gonna unmute Anya so she can ask her own question. She's joining us in Zoom from Germany.
I have a question. I always have so much miscellaneous stuff that I can't seem to get rid of. So I'm pretty well organized. I had a professional organizer since 2017, and she helped me a lot. I got rid of a load of stuff, so I'm far into the process. But
That's
this
great.
miscellaneous stuff, it keeps staying on the surfaces, and I don't know how to deal with that really.
So these are things that you want to keep them. So they've already gone through the decluttering process, and these are things you want to keep, and that you just don't know where to put them, how to handle them.
No, it's rather stuff, everyday stuff I need. So some recipe or some medicine for the pets, this kind of stuff.
Right.
This random stuff that I need to keep and put somewhere, but don't. I'm the kind of person you described this. So I need physical items to remind me of doing stuff.
Right. Okay. So I heard an organizer one time say, if you put things into a container, then it looks much more purposeful than if it's not in one. And I thought that the idea of it looking purposeful was very important and valuable. And what I mean by that is, if you, like, I'm having this issue, I'm giving medicine to a cat right now. So having the cat medicine out on the counter is important for me to remember to do it, but I have it in a tray on the counter. So it's sort of like a little tiny, it's like a little tiny workstation that has the stuff for the pets in it. So I would put it in the vicinity of where you're going to administer the meds, and then have it be in some kind of an open tray, box, Gladware, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it can be in a dish, it could be in anything decorative, but have it sitting in something. So it's like, here's my little portable workstation. If
But
you,
can
you
I?
said was recipe, you said.
I just want to add something because
Okay.
I do this kind of, but it seems to overflow. There's so many little tasks, and
Right.
it just looks horrible and bothers me.
Well, and I think that usually little piles of stuff like that have a whole bunch of things that are like, you have all your little various tasks collected in one place. So some of it is that each different thing is being kept for a different reason. It's a different process, right? Like, one of them is meds for the cat. One of them is the recipe you're going to cook tonight. One of them is the lipstick that you take out when you go. And so all of those things are happening. They're all different tasks that you have during the day. And so each one of them may need its own system. So right now it's sort of a miscellaneous jumble, but if you take each item and go, okay, why am I keeping this one thing? What am I going to do with it? And how do I want to manage this one thing? And we do it for larger categories all around the house. And, I'm going to put all the linens in here. I'm going to put all of the pantry items in here. I'm going to label this stuff in the fridge. Like, you do some sort of big processes for large solutions, large groups of tasks, but then there's always a few little, like you say, little miscellaneous tasks that are all still things that you do, but it's a little bit more fine sorting, that you have to look at each one separately instead of a whole pile and decide, okay, this item, and I'm keeping it, and I'm going to use it in this way, and so where would make sense for me to put it so that it can serve as a reminder, so that I have easy access to it, so I'm going to use it the way that it's supposed to be used. And if you're down to that little pile, it may be time to let the organizer come back in and help you evaluate each one of those things and find the place where this task, each one of those little tasks, becomes a part of your routine.
I sort
Yeah,
of
thank you.
I sympathize with Anya because I find that if things are too organized, if everything is put away, if that ever happened that everything got put away and out of sight, I would kind of feel like, oh, there's nothing to do. I can read a book. I'm done. It's all done. And so I need reminders, and I also have the problem that I am missing the calendar gene. I cannot
Oh,
operate a calendar. And so, like, Hardy gets his flea and tick medication on one day of the month and his heartworm stuff on another day of the month. And I have them on the calendar, and about every other month, I'm a day late on something because I can't operate a calendar. But the calendar does serve. The calendar does serve as the reminder. Sooner or later, I see it, and that way, those things can be hidden in a closet. They don't have to be out somewhere.
on the counter,
So
yeah.
it's kind of a matter of finding a reminder system that does work for you, whether
Right.
it's a checklist that you look at every day, or a monthly calendar, whatever.
And without seeing all of the individual items in the miscellaneous list that she's talking about, I mean, I'm sure that there is a solution for each one of those things that works for her. But I think you have to pick each one of them up now and go, okay, this is my pet meds. So where am I going to store the pet meds that make sense? This is and I'm making up what else is in her list. And so it's going to require, you're down to well, let me just say it's a good thing that you're down to that fine sorting level. It means you've made a lot of progress, right? Like you've gotten the big stuff done and now you're down to the fiddly bits. And if you're at the fiddly bit stage, you're very far along. So congratulations on that. And if you find that you are stumped with how to handle them, then it might be time to let the organizer come and look at it again, because then she will be able to go, oh, well, let's talk our way through this pile, and she can come up with some solutions while she's standing in your house, so she can develop solutions that are specific to your space, which is super important, right? Like it needs to work in your environment. So I think it's a good time to ask for her help about that.
Deborah concurred. Out of sight is out of mind, and suggested
Right.
putting it on the smartphone. She says, I say, hey Siri, set a reminder to flip my mattress every 3 months. And part of my problem is I have so many, between bill paying and personal life and running a business, I have so many darn reminders. I have them all I use an app for the Mac called Things, that is a task management product, but there are so darn many of them that, the daily list is frightening.
The
And
mile long.
I just I don't look at it because there's always the burning there. Catherine said, haha, you run out of things to do, Ed, come down to Texas. I have a list. So,
Well, and everybody gets to the last dregs of things that they're having a hard time making a decision about. And I do want to say that, the out of sight, out of mind thing is a reminder to me that, particularly for people that are ADD, being out of sight is like turning off the light. That if they can't see it, they can't remember it. And so filing it away in a file is a solution that works for neurotypical people, not for ADD people. So if you are one of those people for if it's hidden, it disappears, then you have to find some adaptive ways for coping. And going into that list of coping mechanisms is worth your research and effort, because you're not making that up. I mean, somebody that's ADD, for which a perception of time is skewed and off, and remembering things that are filed in a file is just not possible. You really do have to have some customized adaptive solutions to manage. And so keeping up in that, figuring out what those are for you is super important. Who else has something to say about getting motivated this week?
Jan on Facebook added, often it is I had this idea and maybe I started implementing, got distracted or overwhelmed, didn't finish, and I want to keep it there to go back to. So leaving something out as a reminder, but all sorts of started but fell off the wagon, and then there's a whole series of other wagons I get on and off, get on and fall off of. Then there is the fear of forgetting. She
Right.
says, yes, ADD people, I am.
Right. And you really
And
have to recognize that all the typical solutions will not work for you because it's not how your brain works. And so you really need to look at ADD solutions.
and Charity also on Facebook mentioned clear tubs with labels helps some people with ADD.
Yes, right. And just being able to corral them in something that is, you can see through it and you can line it up on a shelf and look at it and be able to go and put your hand on it makes a huge difference. It's true.
Sonia said the cat has to be fed every day, so the meds would go wherever the cat food is, wouldn't it? And that's true if it's a daily medication, that makes sense.
Yes.
Grouping recurring daily tasks together definitely makes sense. It's my issue is that he's got 2 monthly medicines, and the vet recommended not giving them on the same day because so
It's
that if
too
he has
overwhelming.
and so if he has adverse effects, you know which one it was that bothered him. But
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, and I see in the chat in Zoom that people are saying things like, I put alerts on Alexa and my phone, otherwise I would forget to do things. Deborah says, put it in your smartphone. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
and that's a good reminder, prompt reminder. If you can get it into the reminders, don't forget to blah, 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 and have it pop out, that would be a great way to deal with it and face it if you have ADD and you forget everything. I'm
well,
doing the
and
same thing with my pet meds. I had to go on my calendar because I have to give him a B12 shot right now once a week. And so I don't want to miss it. You don't want you want the levels to stay even. And so I had to go put it on the calendar to remind me, go give the cat a shot because
well,
I'll forget otherwise.
and Anya added, maybe I just have too many small tasks to do, and that is part of the issue, and
Mm.
it's kind of a reminder that besides physical clutter, there's electronic clutter, and there's there's time and task clutter.
Right.
And
Exactly.
with your help many years ago, I got rid of the lion's share of the physical clutter, but I still deal all the darn time with paper clutter because the paper never ends.
Right.
And
It
and
never goes
then
away.
and then the time and the electronic clutter and the time and task clutter remain challenges.
Right. Well, and I think if I'm thinking about Anya's containers, and there's probably some containers that if you find that the jumble of stuff is visually distracting or visually noisy to you, then it might help to have a box with a lid that's labeled so that you don't forget it because it's covered up. You can still see the label, and it might help you remember. But if I was going to come to your house and work on it, I would definitely pick up each thing and talk through it with you about what are we saving this for? How do you use it in your daily life? When is it that you need it? Where is it that you're going to use it? And it's a great way to devise like one system won't work for everything in your pile. So you need to devise the systems that work for, like items, or maybe you're down to you got to have a system for each one thing in there. Wish I could come to your house. now I'm curious and I want to come to your house and start deconstructing the pile for you.
Okay, we have time for one more question, I think, and this is from a user, an anonymous user in Zoom. How do we resist pretty new decor items from Home Goods? They're unique, and you won't find many items at other home goods stores, so you're pressured to buy now because you won't find it again. So Can you speak to that? That
So,
feeling of I'm in a store and I see something and it's not something I can get just anywhere.
right? And your house is not an infinite decorative zone. It cannot be decorated to infinity with all of the things that you find interesting and clever. So first, stop going into home goods so often. Second, you have to ask yourself whether you really have, when you see it, I mean, they wouldn't be in the they wouldn't be in the store as things to sell if they weren't all clever and cute, right? Like there's somebody on task on staff there that merchandises the store to make it look all fabulous, and you are the intended target. Right? They're trying to get you to buy, so it's their job to make it look enticing, and it's your job to go, this store is not my house. My house is not a store. I do not have infinite surfaces on which to put things. And so once you set a decor item, I mean, once you set a decor theme for your house, like I'm decorating it with these colors and this style and whatever, then you can look at something and go, yes, this is super cute, but it doesn't go with my theme. And if you ever go, if you watched all the television on shows on HGTV, all the designing, decorating, redoing houses, they have decor in them, but they don't have 150 pieces of decor. They have one, painting on the wall and one little vase on the nightstand and two books. And, it's very thin on the ground. If you ever want a reference point, go look at some of those beautiful Pinterest decorated rooms and count how many decorative items are there in one room. And you will be surprised to see that the count is 3 or 7. It will be definitely under 10, most likely, and it will look beautiful because it is so sparsely. They find the 1 or 2 or 3 things that support the theme they're trying to build there, and then they stop. And they don't keep adding. And so every time you go in the store and add another thing, you're just building volume. You're not actually improving your decor. And so recognizing that about yourself, yes, they're all beautiful and cute, but if you find them all beautiful and cute, you're going to have to redo your decor all the time, and which really means that either you're going to have to contain how much you bring home and stop it, or you're going to have to every few months take all the other stuff out and put new stuff in. So either way, you're going to either be shedding what you buy and churning the contents all the time, or you're going to be not buying as much. And so those are kind of the choices to not be drowning in decor. If you were a decorator or designer and you had infinite number of people's spaces to go decorate, then you could go shopping at Home Goods all the time. But going to Home Goods all the time is just a recipe for taking home stuff you don't need. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well,
Right?
and if it's something you enjoy as a hobby, I don't think home goods, buying things new and then selling them somewhere else isn't a real big winner as a business plan. But
Yeah.
my sister and brother-in-law love shopping for vintage stuff, and when they find bargains on vintage stuff, some of it goes in their house, and sometimes it replaces something that then goes into their store. They have a booth in a store that sells vintage furnishings and decorations. But
But
you
you
have to
but
have
oh my gosh, what a black hole that is. You better be really serious about
yeah,
selling.
you have to be completely serious. You have to be prepared to pay the rent on the booth, or um, turn, like, several times a week, turn around the things you've sold on eBay and make trips to and from the post office or the UPS
Yeah.
store and so on. It's a real commitment.
Because you know that you
We
can
have
shop 9,000 miles faster than you can sell on the back end, right? Like you
darn right.
cannot. Yeah. No.
One more question from RC, who said, Ed, can you explain time and task clutter?
Oh,
And
yes.
what I meant by that is you accumulate responsibilities And that can be things other people have asked you to do, and or assignments you've given yourself because you want to, like, I want to read every day, I want to write every day, I want to meditate every day. I have a whole long list of things I would like to be doing every day, and they go on the to-do list and I don't get to them all. And so it's a whole separate branch of clutter. It's a kind of virtual clutter, but it still piles up, and you have to have a routine for clearing it out and saying, here's something I put on my to-do list because it sounded like a good idea. Read this article I found, or get this book out of the library. And you have to have a process for reviewing it all regularly and to say, nope, never going to get to that.
Or it looked like I've changed my mind, it's not a good idea,
Yeah, it
or
seemed like a good idea.
I'm actually going to do that one. I have to say that Eileen posted on the Zoom chat, if you can't resist the eclairs, stay out of the bakery. Like, that's a perfect description. If you find that you go into stores that assault you with great tchotchkes that you need to take home for your house when you're already drowning in tchotchkes, then you need to work at staying away from your trigger, and not going into the store is a great solution. Yeah, I would have a hard time going into a bakery and not coming out with a baked good. That is a true statement.
Okay, we have to quit. I want to remind our viewers and listeners that our YouTube channel has more than 100 videos on lots of organizing topics, and you can get there by going to cfhou.com/YouTube.
Hold on, I'm
too
finding
fast for you.
There you go. Okay.
Subscribe on YouTube to get notifications whenever we post a new video, which is every week. I want to remind everybody that we'll meet next Tuesday, same time, at noon U.S. Central Time, live in Zoom and streaming on Facebook. And we're going to talk about organizing issues with small spaces. Cramped kitchens, phone booth bathrooms, shoebox closets present a host of special organizing problems. We'll offer a few solutions beyond the obvious answer of a trip to IKEA. If you're watching on YouTube, we'd love for you to join us live. To receive notifications about our upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup.
Oh, wait. There we go. There's the meetup.
You
I'm having trouble with my signs today.
You can also follow us on Facebook by going to cfhou.com/Facebook, or join our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from you. Please send us your questions, topic suggestions, and comments in the YouTube comments or on Facebook or anywhere else you can find us. And you can always reach us through our website at clutterfairyhouston.com. And I keep forgetting to say, and if you'd like to support our efforts and facilitate our making more content, you can also become a sponsor on Patreon. And we don't have a sign for it yet, but it's cfhou.com/Patreon. Okay.
Patreon.
Yes. Thank you. I haven't said that, have I?
No. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate so much that you were here, and we will talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.